I just bought the cheapest TDI Sportwagon on Facebook Marketplace. What have I gotten myself into? So I just started looking for a new daily driver for my wife and stumbled across this posting the other day, a few minutes after the guy put it up for sale. It was a great price, and the next cheapest one was a couple $1,000s more than this. So we went out and picked this up yesterday. Unfortunately, I did make one of the cardinal sins of buying a used car, and I was in an extreme hurry when we met the guy. So I only had about 15 minutes, and I really kind of rushed through checking over the car. And I did actually miss a few things, but for the price, it was still a great deal. So what's wrong with it? The first issue is the radio's not working. This car does have the navigation head unit, and it doesn't power on. I've already tried to do the hard reset and not getting any luck there, so I'm gonna have to pop this out and check the wiring and see if the unit's still working. There's also a few little issues here with some of the interior headliner pieces that are askew or not put back in right, so I need to go through those. One of the other big issues that's common on these that this one is suffering from as well is a leaky sunroof. It's got the panoramic glass sunroof, and that does seem to be allowing water into the car. In fact, let's look at the trunk back here. This is definitely one that I missed. I pulled up and looked in the small storage compartment above where the spare tire goes, but I got distracted talking to the guy and forgot to pull up and look in the spare tire compartment. So not only am I missing the spare wheel, but it's full of water. So that's not good. I need to get that out of there immediately and then figure out where all that water is coming from. Lovely. Where did this much water come from? You want to like don't drop it in the water. That's disgusting. Sorry, grass. Alright, well that's much better. So I guess there is a little bit more than surface rust here from all that water, so I need to do something about that so that it doesn't get worse. But that'll be easy. I've got plenty of paint sitting around. So one of the other things that I did actually see and catch when we were looking at the car was the tires. They are pretty shot, especially the front tires, and the front passenger side is really bad. So that is indicative of some kind of suspension or control arm issues. So there might be a bad bushing or two in here. I need to pop the wheel off and inspect that before we go get new tires and get an alignment, because it's definitely out of alignment as well. Otherwise it drives pretty well. Got a check engine light on, and it's going to need just routine maintenance at 100,000 miles here, but nothing that should be too bad. There was one other little thing too that's pretty common on these that I've replaced a couple of them on my Audi over the years, but of course one of the power windows does not work properly. 3 of them work, but the rear passenger side does not roll down or roll up, so I need to figure out what's going on there as well. And then beyond that, it's mostly cosmetic stuff, like the B-pillar here on the passenger side especially looks pretty bad. That's going to either need to paint that or maybe wrap that in some kind of vinyl, something to make that look a lot better. And then everything else is pretty much cosmetic. There's a few little scrapes and dings, but nothing that's too bad, and it's pretty much what you'd expect for an 11-year-old car. So I guess first thing we'll do is start cleaning it up. now the car's all clean, time to break out the computer. See if my cable for my Audi will work with the later Volkswagen here. It should. That's better. Alright, now let's go in here and try to find the correct model. Right, let's start the scan. It looks like we've got a couple of fault codes, 3 faults found. Intake manifold flap position sensor, ECM power relay load circuit, and another open circuit. So at least 2 of those might be grounding issues from the sunroof leak, the moisture in the car. So let's save those. Well, that got rid of the check engine light for now anyway. Still need to put washer fluid in it though. That one just came back. All right, well, yeah. Alright, so after scanning the codes in the computer and clearing them, the check engine light did end up coming back, and fortunately out of the 3 codes that I had originally, only one of them came back, and that was P2015, which is an extremely common issue with these TDIs. Apparently, that's what I read on the internet. And the issue is with the flap inside the intake manifold ends up getting a little bit worn over time, so the sensor for that gets outside of the range. So to fix that, there's actually a nice little bracket, and what that does is it's just going to prevent the sensor from going outside of the range. So it should be a nice easy fix. I just need to remove the sensor from the engine, install the little bracket here, and then reinstall it. So to show you, this is what we're after right here. So, need to pull this whole sensor out. Of course, it wasn't real smart to drive this not too long ago. It's still quite hot. Ooh, very hot. Okay, got all 3 bolts out of there. Now I just need to collect the spring. Alright, there's the part removed. So this little arm is what moves and gets outside of its range of motion and causes that fault code. So I believe this goes on here like that. You can see that the arm for this wants to go back further, but once you put that bracket on there, it keeps it from going that last little bit. All right, ready to go back in to reattach the spring and the little arm. Of course, as usual on Volkswagen cars, it's very tight. They never do leave you any room to work. Okay, reinstalled. Oh, I guess I gotta put the wiring back on too here. So I just need to clear the codes again and then drive around a little bit so that the sensor moves the way that it's supposed to, make sure that everything's good, but I think that will take care of my check engine light. Also, this would be a good time to inspect the air filter. It is dirty, so I will be replacing that when I go ahead and service the rest of the engine, change the oil and all that. I'm going to get a complete kit with air filter, cabin air filter, oil filter, fuel filter, all that fun stuff. So I'll be getting to that before too long as well. All right, so next up, I guess we'll see if we can get this radio out of here and figure out what's going on with that. There we go. Now we just need to take those 4 screws out. Oh shit. Alright, T20 Torx bits. Alright, got all those out of there. Everything looks okay back here. Let's try unplugging it and plugging it back in. Alright. Let's see if that did anything. Well, it would appear not. Guess we'll have to keep looking. Need to check the ground and check the fuse. Okay, so it turns out the factory head unit was totally dead. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything I could do to get power to it to get it to come back on. So I went ahead and ordered an aftermarket knockoff of a later factory unit off Amazon. There's a couple different places you can get these, but I found one for really cheap. It was like 120 bucks. So went ahead and got that installed here. It's not fully installed yet. I got a few wires hanging out here. So the GPS antenna for the new unit, I still need to route that. And then I've also got a USB connection for the phone that's sticking out here. And that's still out because I've got a USB port coming for the console here. So down here next to the shifter, you'll lift up one of these little covers and there will be a USB outlet there hooked up to the new radio once that shows up. This was really awesome. It came with all the adapters and the CAN bus stuff that you needed. So it was literally less than 2 minutes to install this once the old radio was out. Plugged in the adapter to the new stereo, plugged in that to the old harness along with the CAN bus adapter, and everything is good to go. Everything works perfectly. All of the steering wheel controls. Put the car in reverse and it shuts the radio off and looks for the rear view camera input, which currently is not hooked up. But just to show you here, I've already got it configured. So you click this on and just like the factory unit, I've got it set up so you get a nice VW logo there. There's a couple different you can choose from.
Damaged and you have comprehensive insurance.
And there's the radio. One other important note for putting an aftermarket unit in one of these Volkswagen or Audi vehicles is this car actually had 3 antennas in it. So the adapter that came with the radio only allowed me to hook up 1 out of the 3 antennas. So I went ahead and ordered another adapter for like $10 that takes 2 out of the 3 antennas and combines them and plugs that into the back of the radio. So since I did that, now we can actually get all the radio stations. When I first hooked this up, we could only pick up literally 1 single radio station, and we are not in a rural area, so there's lots of stations. So that's all good now. And overall, I'm really impressed with this radio for the price. It's got navigation, which, you know, isn't the best, but it works. It'll play DVDs, plays radio, has an SD card slot, it's got Bluetooth, so it's really got all the functions that you're looking for there. And for the rear view camera, since this car didn't have one from the factory, I found an OE knockoff part. So the OE part I think was a couple $100 and I wasn't willing to spend that. But of course there's Chinese knockoff stuff. So I went ahead and got the backup camera that fits in where the tailgate release handle goes. So the handle's a little smaller than the one that's on there from the factory, but this one also has the camera. So once I hook that up, you put the car in reverse, it will work just like the factory backup camera and radio. So it's a nice little upgrade, and it really was only like $20 or $25 for this camera. And since everything else was in there, it makes it for a nice simple little upgrade. I just have to install this in the liftgate and run the wire all the way up here to the head unit. And then once all that's done and I've got all these wires tucked away and hidden, I can put the trim plate back on here, and most people will never be able to tell that this wasn't a factory radio. Well, I discovered another little issue here. As a result of all the leaking from the sunroof, water's gotten down here into some of the wiring for the Bluetooth module and the this is for the passenger seat power. So right now the seat is not working, so I can't adjust the back of the seat because the power cable has snapped off there. So I'm going to take the little piece and solder it back on. I've already taken it out of the wiring harness here, de-pin that. So I'm going to go get that pin, solder it back, put it back on the wiring harness here, and then the seat should work again. Well, the old terminal was just too far gone. I could not get it to take any solder. So I went rummaging through what I had in the garage, and I found another male terminal from an old wiring harness that I think should work for this. So I'm just going to be lazy now and butt splice that together with the wire. That should take care of it. Then of course I want to tape that up real good. I'm just going to stick it in the spot where the old one came out. So it looks pretty much like the other one did. I don't know how well it's locked in there, but I think that should do the job. Well, that's not pretty, but it'll work. Well, that did it. Okay, so up next I need to start pulling the headliner down here so I can get to the sunroof drains. Alright, another panel down. Alright, well you can see here, looks like this, it's the green line there. Looks like this side's been replaced. This side, the line is the yellow line there, and that looks like it's probably the original. And I can't really see, I mean I can see what I'm trying to get to there, but I don't see that it's come off or it's leaking or anything. Let's see if you can see it there. See back in there? Right there, where that green line connects. I think that's one of the issues. I also need to pull back here and check the bottoms of these drains and make sure they're not clogged up. Good. Okay, so I got the headliner pulled down a little bit here, and I got the drain line pulled out and removed from the one side. Looks like this side has clearly been replaced before, because on this side where it was leaking the worst, we've got a green hose, and then it looks like an older yellow hose on the opposite side. So I went ahead and pulled this off the drain from the sunroof channel, and I tried to feed some weed eater line down through the hole here, and I got it pretty far in there, but it seems like it is actually clogged up. So I'm going to pour a little water down there and then use some compressed air to hopefully blow out whatever is clogging up that line. Then once the line's clear, I'm going to dab some weather strip sealant on the little socket here and then push that back together, and then that will hopefully keep those from leaking at that connection. So. All right, well that seems like it's clear now. I don't see any water coming out underneath where it should be draining, so I'm just gonna keep putting water through it until I can see it start to drain out. So still not seeing any water underneath the car there. So obviously I need to check the very end of the drain line here, so I need to pull out the rest of this interior here. All right, well since I've already got the interior torn apart, it's a great time to go ahead and install the rear view camera, backup camera, so I can route all the wires through with all the panels off there. So I just need to go ahead and pull this interior panel off as well so I can get to it. Gotta love German cars when they make everything the same size. That makes it a lot easier. All right, I think that's it. I think everything else is just clips. Let's give it a shot here. There we go. So to massage those clips a little bit. I just need to get to this handle up here. A couple of 10 mils. See, that should just pop out of there now, I think. All right. All right, that's loose. All right, there's the old one out. Here's my new one with the camera. All right, so that should just fit up in here like that. Just want to test to make sure that it works real quick. So for now, I'm just going to tap into the power outlet in the back here to power the camera. Plug it in and make sure that it all works as it should. And then after that, I can work on running the wire through the car. Well, I finally found my leak. The end of the drain line there was full of crap, and it was disconnected, which I may have done when I blew that out. So I just need to clean that out the rest of the way and then find a good way to glue that tube in there so that that doesn't pop out again. Also decided, since none of this is really insulated very well, this would be a good time. I went ahead and ordered some sound deadener. That'll be here tomorrow. So before I put all this back together, I'm definitely going to add some of that in here and make it a little quieter. Okay, now I've got the drain lines all cleared out and the fitting all cleared out. I'm going to go ahead and use some weather strip adhesive to put those together, and hopefully that'll keep those from pulling apart. So then up here on the bowl for the other end, do the same thing. Clean that out a little bit more first. I think that'll be enough. Don't want it to clog up the opening, of course. Got a little too much in there. I think that'll be good. Okay, that's back on there. I'm not going to put it back in the clips just yet. Give that adhesive time to set up a little bit. Now I just need to do the other side. Okay, so here's the left side. I definitely had not done anything to this one up top yet, and you can see here that it was disconnected, just hanging there. So I guess that was the problem with both of them. We're just totally disconnected. So do the same thing. I'll clean this out and then slather it with some weather strip adhesive, and hopefully that'll glue them together. So while I had all of the interior torn apart here, I went ahead and got some sound insulation to add. So I've just stuck that throughout in some various places here. Didn't put it everywhere, but enough to quiet it down some. Now before I put all the interior back, I need to run the cable for my backup camera. So the last thing, while the interior was still partially out, I needed to fix the rust in the spare tire wheel well. Fortunately, I had some paint sitting around on hand, so that made for a free and easy repair for the rust in the wheel well. Alright, time to go through and service everything. I got a big box full of parts, air filter, cabin air filter, fuel filter, oil filter, new oil, and a transmission service kit as well. So to get started with that, first thing I'm going to do is the fuel filter. God damn it. And since it's diesel, put some gloves on here. That's loose. Oops. Well, spilled some of that. Oh boy, that's nice and dirty. I just need to change out the O-ring here. I can put the new filter in. Alright, that's basically done. Just need to screw it back down. There is a specific torque setting on these, of course, but it's not very much, so I'm just going to make them hand tight basically because that's all they really need. Done. Now I just need to get the VAGCOM out and prime the fuel system. Okay, so now that the fuel filter is done, I need to go ahead and work on changing the oil, and at the same time I'm going to try to service the transmission as well. So need to start taking a few things off here, starting with the engine cover, and then to get to the stuff for the transmission I need to pull part of the airbox out and the battery and battery tray. And I actually bought an extractor to change the oil on this. However, since I need to do the transmission as well, I'm going to go ahead and pull off the belly pan in the front so I can access the drain plugs for both the transmission and the engine oil and drain it that way. And that'll also be good if there is any junk in the bottom of the pan for the oil. That'll be sure to get it out because I don't know the oil change history for this car. And then going forward in the future, I'll use the extractor, and that way I won't have to take the belly pan off just to change the oil. Something else here real quick. I think I actually have the right size socket to take the oil filter housing apart, but I went ahead and 3D printed the actual tool. There was a file on Thingiverse for the adapter tool for that, so that actually just fits right on top of the housing there. Same thing for the transmission actually. It requires a kind of a special tool. It's not really that complex, but a little threaded fitting to be able to refill the transmission properly. So rather than order one of those for 10 bucks, 12 bucks, whatever they are, I went ahead and 3D printed one. There's the old air filter out. A little dirty. Well, the camera died, but I did finish changing out everything for the transmission. I've got it refilled, and so just need to put the airbox back in it and then start it up and warm up the transmission fluid and then finish it up. so got everything put back together. Everything is finished with the car here. So to real quickly recap everything that I've done to the car. First thing, replace that head unit. That was $140. And then I fixed the intake manifold flap position sensor with that little aluminum bracket. That bracket was $9. I repaired the passenger seat wiring so that the power seat works again. That was $0, a nice little free repair just with some parts that I had laying around in the garage. I also fixed the leaky sunroof drains. That was another free repair. Same thing with cleaning up the spare tire well that was all beat up and rusty. Getting that sanded, cleaned up, rust removed, and repainted. That was also a free repair. After all that was done, I installed that sound deadener in the spare tire well and then in the back in a few places as well. Oh, that was $33 for the sound deadener. The single most expensive part of the repairs that I did on this car was getting the new tires installed, balanced, and getting an alignment done. That was $706 for all of that work. Then the other big thing I did was service everything with the car. That was replacing all of the fluids, all of the filters, including the engine oil, fully servicing the transmission, and that was $199 for all the materials used for that. Then the last thing I did was the upgrade to add the backup camera to the car. The backup camera itself cost me $28. So all said and done, all of the repairs and upgrades that I did to this car after we got it added up to $1,115. So that brings the total that I've spent on this car, including the $4,000 purchase price, to $5,115. So that's actually a pretty good deal considering the book value on this car is somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000. So I didn't get to a couple of the exterior cosmetic repairs on this car that I talked about at the beginning. So I'm going to come back and do those in another video here. This is by far my longest video I've done yet. I'm going to wrap it up here. Check back in the future for another video on this car when I go back and I tackle a couple of these cosmetic and exterior things that I haven't gotten to yet. But you know the drill. Like this video if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thank you very much for watching till the end, and I will see you next time.